Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of SAP Security. In this session we will be discussing about special authorization, or we can call this session as a critical authorization objects. The first object is related to table maintenance. We already know what is tables, what are the contents we available in tables. The table maintenance object is s underscore tabu underscore dis. This authorization object checks for displaying or maintaining any table content. How do we update the table content? Generally we use the transaction code SM30, or we can use SE16 for table browsing, or we also have SE17 and SM31 and SM34 also related to table maintenance. So these are all the transaction code we can use along with the authorization object s underscore tabu underscore dis. We have two different fields, which is called disciples, this is called authorization group, and activity. Activity is basically you have 02 to create and change or delete table entries, and we have 03 for display an entry. And disciples means this is authorization group. So each table will have an authorization group. In our previous exercise also, when we traced the function module, we have seen it's checking for an authorization group. So authorization group means each table assigned with an authorization group, or number of table assigned with an authorization group. So whenever you assign this authorization group in this specific authorization object, that specific table can be maintained by the user who have this authorization. So that is this stabu dis is one of the critical object. Whoever assign this one, you have to be very specific what you will be assigning in this authorization group object. First let's look into what is this table tdat. So authorization for tables are grouped by authorization class. Accordingly, this is available in the table tdat. Let's look into our system. How does this tdat look like? Go to table browsing SE16, then type in the table name tdat. I wanted to see the table for agr underscore 1251, agr underscore 1251. When you execute, then you got the authorization group as yes. So this is the authorization group used for agr underscore 1251. And one who assigned this authorization group, you need to be very careful. This is not the only table which is going to have this authorization group. You will have multiple tables will have the authorization group. Let's go back and see. Let me remove this and say authorization group SS. It's quite many. If I click here number of entries, then we will know. So almost 219 tables have this authorization group SS. So once you assign this authorization group under stabu dis with the specific activity, then the user who have the role have authorization for all the tables which has this authorization group. So we have to be very careful also when we are assigning the authorization group. How many tables have this authorization group, that you need to know. Let's say we look into the table PA008, for example. If we go here, it has authorization group PA. This is in the HR. Let's go back, say authorization group PA, number of tables. We have 1275 tables have authorization group PA. Mostly it should be related to HR. Let's see, mostly it's related to HR info types, PA info types. So if you like to restrict this authorization for specific users, then we can simply remove this authorization group from the SWDs. Now let's do an exercise, then we will understand this better. Let's create a role with SWDs. Go to PFCG, I create a role z underscore bc underscore table maintain. Okay, this is my role. So I simply create SAP security training table maintenance. Then go to authorization, or let's use menu, it will be quite easy. So I will add here two transactions. So let's say SC16 and SM13. We can add all the transactions which we have seen. Just for our testing purpose, I add only SC16 and SM30. Assign this role. Go to authorization tab, select change authorization data, say yes. It brings all the authorization objects. We have the transaction code in. Then let's check the authorization object. At the moment I don't need this one, and this one is s underscore translate. For translation I don't need this one, so I need only SWDs. So I have activity 02 and 03, and okay, let it be like that. I will assign the authorization group SS. Okay, that means I can edit all the tables which has authorization group SS. Let me create the profile by saving, yes, then I say generate. Now this is my role name. Let me copy this role name, and I will put it into Notepad. Now let's create a user for testing purpose. Security A, student A. Let's create the user. Here SAP security table maintain. Go to logon data, put some password. Go to the roles. Let me paste the role which I copied. So for us to test, I will also add the SU53 role. Okay, and I say save. Now let's log in with this user. I have to change the password since it's the first time login. Okay, now we logged in this user. Let's go to SC16. We need to select a table which has the authorization group SS. So for this purpose I already created a custom table for is that security table. This is a custom table, have an authorization group SS. So just to confirm, I will go to td-dat and put the table name. So it has an authorization group SS. So if I go to SC16, use the table, then I should be able to view this table. Okay, it has some AGR name and created user. At the moment this does not have any values, there is no contents in there. Let's go back and try to view a different table. Let's take our HR table PA0001. We already know this have a different authorization group. Let's say let's try to view. You are not authorized to display this table. Let's go to /n SU53. So in SU53 you can see it's checking for an authorization object s_tabu dis with an activity 03 with the authorization group PA. And what we have, we have 02 and 03 only for SS. Let's try to maintain this table. Go to SM30. Change this table, go to maintain, new entry, let's say role is set security test role 1, user 1, then I go Z security test role 02, user 9. So some entries we made, and let's save this. Okay, the data is saved. If you go to display mode, we should be able to see the data. If you go to SC16 also, we should be able to see this data. SC16 and put this, we can see it. And we also know one more table which we have used in our previous training, which is called this customizing table. This customizing table also belongs to the same group. If you go to td-dat, sorry, td-dat we cannot view because it's come from a different authorization group. SM53, sorry, what I'm doing, /n SU53. So it's come a different group. So I will go to my another user, training user, and check the td-dat. This also coming from SS. So we come here, SC16, put the table, enter and execute. Now I can view the content of this table also. So like this, whatever you have, the tables you have under the user group SS, you can view. Let's try to maintain this table using SM30. This is a table. Go to maintain. No maintenance authorization for cross-client tables. It does not have maintenance authorization, but you can only display. Let's go to SU53. What is the problem here? It has a different object which called cross-client table maintenance. We will be learning about this object more in this class. So let's go back to our presentation. Now we have seen what is the use of s_tabu_dis. The next object we would like to discuss about is s_tabu_nam. This object also related to table maintenance, but this is little different from the tabu dis. This authorization check also for displaying and maintaining contents in the generic tables using the same transaction code SC16, SC17 and SM30 and SM31 and 34. Now you may think, why do we need to have two different authorization objects for the same activity? The difference between s_tabu_dis and s_tabu_nam, that s_tabu_nam you can restrict based on table name. Let's say you have fields within under this object which is called table and activity. The table is name of the table or name of the view. So you can tables, you can have two elements. One is the table name, one is the view. View means basically you can have collection of tables. You can view in a different format. The table can be in the different format, the view can be in a different format. The view can be in the way in which you want the user to be viewed that particular data. This have two different field. One is called table, another one is activity. Activity we know 02 and 03, and table is which has the table name. Let's take the table name. So s_tabu_dis will grant authorization based on authorization group, that authorization class. s_tabu_name will provide authorization based on the table. However, this object only checked if the authorization for s_tabu_dis is failed. So this is the secondary authorization object check, that we need to understand this very clear. First, it checks for s_tabu_dis. For the authorization object, if it is available, then the authorization is provided. If let's say this authorization object is not available or it fails, then it checks for s_tabu_name. Then under this object it checks, okay, what is the specific table name which is available for this user. Then based on the table name you will be able to view. So in general, this s_tabu_nam is the new object which is introduced in the latest SAP versions. If you see in the older versions 4.6 and 4.7 or older ones, you will not find this object. The reason this object is introduced just because if you wanted to restrict one specific table, then you need to create a specific authorization group for this table. So that seems to be a complication. Now SAP come out with s_tabu_name, so that you can restrict or we can allow access only to specific table. Let's look into in our example. Right now we have access to quite a number of tables. I have this table and I also have access to this table. I want to provide access only for this customizing table, sec underscore table. Anything apart from this table should not be viewed by the user student A. That is my objective. Now we need to change the authorization concept. Let's go back to the training user. Now we need to modify this role. Let's go to PFCG, table maintenance, change, go to authorization, edit old status. Now if you see, we said this has to fail, then only the tabu name will be effective. So if I keep this authorization object like this, first it will check tabu disk and we have SS, and it will grant all authorization which is available for SS. So if you want to restrict, first of all you need to disable this. So that means this is failed, this is not available. When the SAP check the program logic, first it will check for underscore tabu disk. It is not available, then the second check will be underscore tabu name. So let me add it manually, underscore tabu underscore name. Then open it. Let's see the activities. So we can have create, change and display. Then the table name. In the table name we need to specify the specific table which you want to access. The table name which we would like to access is this one, sec underscore table. Here you don't need an authorization group. This authorization object is not required at all, or it can be a different group. We will come to that again. Save. I will generate. So we disable the tabu disk. However, we come to a conclusion this tabu disk is not necessary, but if you see in SU24 for this SC16 or SM13, underscore tabu underscore disk will be an mandatory object. Let's check it in SU24, so can be sure that it is not required. Let's say SU24, then type in the transaction code SE16, then execute. When you execute, then you can see all the objects. Now if you see underscore tabu underscore disk, you can see this symbol. This authorization object is checked during the execution of SC16. So in this is a mandatory object for SC16. So in this present situation, if you run SC16 or SM13, then this will not run, so which we know already. So what we will do, we will add one more tabu disk. Again, this is a interesting part here. So I need to provide this authorization, but this is not a mandatory authorization. So I want to just make a dummy authorization check here. So what I will do, I will say 03. I can check actually what is the field it is required. If I go to SU24, select this field value, it say only 03 and the authorization group is blank. So I will just leave it blank. So this means this authorization object is there, but it does not have any effect. And if you remember, if this authorization is still blank and it does not have any value, so we cannot do anything because it's an incomplete yellow traffic light. So let's generate, and it says now you have an open authorization. That's fine. This is a tricky way of putting a dummy value in order to fulfill the requirement of some specific checks, some mandatory checks. Okay, let's leave it like this and see how our role is going to work. Let me go to the user. This is our student A user. Let's directly get into SM30. So this is the table. Let's go to our table. This table is working fine. Let's go for maintenance. It's also working fine. Let's take some another table, for example this one. Even though this is from the same authorization group, it's not working. Let's check our SU53 session SU53. Now if you see, it's checking for yes tabu name and 03 with the table. This is the table name, but we do not have the table name. We have another one. We have only this table, but we do not have this table. So this is yes tabu name. We can also test a different scenario. Let's go to the role again. Let's say I wanted to assign yes tabu dis. Let's go to PFCG authorization, change data. Let's say now what I am trying to do, I wanted to assign in combination with stabu underscore dis and stabu underscore name. So let me disable this. I enable this one, but instead of SS I give PA. Okay. So based on this combination, in effect I should be able to see all the tables which is coming from authorization group PA, and I should also be able to see the table ZZEC underscore table. Let's see how it's going to work. Let's go to our user, the student A. Let's go to SM30. Now if you display, this doesn't work because this is an SS authorization. This table is coming from SS authorization group. We do not have that, and also we do not have yes tabu num for this specific table. Let's say /n SU53. Now if you see, it checked for, initially it should have been checked for s underscore tabu underscore dis, but it was not there. Then it checked for s underscore tabu underscore nam. Then that also not there. That's the reason we have an error. But the other one we can still check it. Let's go to SM30 again. Let's check any PA table. PA 0001. You display. So this does not have a maintenance view. We have to browse in SE16. Go to SE16. Here we can view these tables without problems. Okay. Now what I will do is, I want to assign the customizing table which we have seen also to this role. Let me go to the trainer and go to pfcg, this is my role, and go to change mode, go to s underscore tabu underscore nam. Here I will add one more table. I will add this table also. Okay, I will say save, generate. Now I should be able to view and edit this table. Let me switch it to the student user. I go to SM30. I go to the customizing table, say display. Now I can see without any problem. Now I will maintain this table. When I maintain this table, it says no maintenance authorization for cross client table. That means this table is a cross client table. Now we cannot maintain this cross client table. Let's see what is the authorization object which we are going to use for cross client maintenance. We have another authorization object which is called s underscore tabu underscore cli. This is for cross client table maintenance. So the table which we are trying to change now, it's a cross client table that we seen in our previous session also. Whenever you change anything in this table, it is going to affect entire client. So in this authorization object, you have a field called CLIIDMAINT, client maintain. This is an indicator to say whether we can maintain the cross client table or not. If it is X, then it is granted the authorization. So we need to add this specific authorization if we want to maintain cross client tables. Let's see, this is the table which we are trying to maintain. I tried to maintain this one, then it gave me error. Let me run SU53. So this is the authorization object which is checking. Let me copy this one. I will go to my trainer user. Let's modify this role. So I will add one more object called cross client maintenance. So I added one more object, cross client maintenance. Then we made this as X. If it is 2 quotes, then it is not allowed. If it is X, then it is allowed. So right now I have changed it to allowed. We already had an existing one which we have disabled. Okay, that's fine, just leave it like that. I save and generate. Now let me go to the student user. SM30, go to maintain. It say only caution, the table is cross client. Just for information, you are not authorized for this action. Not sure what is this problem. Let me check it out. /n SU53. You need an additional authorization. It's related to authorization. So let me add this authorization there. Now go to maintenance. It will say, give you the warning message for cross client tables. Say enter. Say new entry. Now you can add additional entry whatever it's required. So this is about cross client table maintenance. Then we have the next table maintenance. This is called organizational based table maintenance. And this object for this s underscore tabu underscore lin. This is little bit different from your s underscore tabu underscore dis and s underscore tabu underscore nam. However, this authorization object complement the s underscore tabu underscore dis and s underscore tabu underscore cli as well as s underscore tabu underscore nam. So s underscore tabu underscore dis will restrict one entire table or s underscore or entire set of tables using authorization group. S underscore tabu underscore nam will restrict one table, one specific table, but the entire table. The object s underscore tabu underscore lim which controls individual rows of the table. So if let's say if you use n underscore nam, you can provide authorization for the entire table. Now I want to restrict only to some specific portion of the table, then we can use this s underscore tabu underscore lim. You can have authorization for each rows in specific table. However, for this you need to have organizational criteria which is a prerequisite for this authorization object. This organizational criteria are business organizational entities, like for example it's a country or a plant or a company code, like this kind of organizational criteria, and link the table key to this authorization field in s underscore tabu underscore lim. So we need to link this the table key with this organization value, then this will work. So to link these specific fields, we have some customizing which needs to be done in SPRO. So if you go to SPRO in SAP system, then go to SAP NetViewer, then go to application server, then go to system administration, users and authorization, you have line oriented authorization. Let's go to our system. So let's go to the transaction code SPRO, go to SAP reference IMG, then open SAP NetViewer, then you go to application server, then go to system administration, then you go to users and authorization, then you will go to line oriented authorization. Here you have two different options. First you define organizational criteria, then you need to activate this organizational criteria. If you click here, again it give you a caution that is a cross client customizing. Here you need to activate a new organization criteria. Let's say if you wanted to have a company code, then you will say new entry, then you say BUKRS, then table included, then you select the BUKRS is created, then you select this and select the attributes, then you add the attributes, then you can define the table field. You create an attribute, then once you created this, again you need to create the table field. Like that you can link. Once you have done that, then you need to activate the organization criteria in this button. You simply select and say activate. For example, we can see the existing values PERSA, personal area. We select this and go to attribute. Now we can see the attribute is defined the same. Then again you drill down to the table field, then you can see the table or the view which is linked to this one and the field which is used for this. So based on this field, then you will have the validation of s underscore tabu underscore lin. So this is the organization key in this specific table. If you go back, once this is done, you go to activate organization key, then you select this and activate this organization key. You can also define number of tables in this same activity. Let's say if you go here, if you go to personal and go to attributes and table fields, you come back. If you see, you can add additional tables here. Let's say if you say additional table, then you can add additional table for the same specific field. This is the use of s underscore tabu underscore lin to restrict authorization specific to some rows from the table. So far we have seen the authorization groups has been created and assigned to roles, assigned to the tables. Now what we are going to see, how to create an authorization group and assign to a specific table. Because you may think, why do we need to do? Because all the tables anyway have some authorization groups, or otherwise we can use swnem and assign this authorization group. So the scenarios like this. Let's say I have a scenario. Let's take HR. In the HR, I have an info type called 0008 and some other info type which is related to payroll. I want to restrict these tables. How do I restrict that? But I want to give access to the tables which is coming from the same group called PA to some of the people, but I do not want them to see these specific tables. How do we do this? In these cases, you can do it using additional authorization group. Let's say I create an additional authorization group, some Z authorization group, and assign these specific tables to that Z authorization group, so that the user will have all the PA tables, but these specific tables are already moved to a different authorization group. But in this case, be very careful when you are changing any SAP standard tables to a different authorization group. This will have a huge impact, especially when you are changing the authorization group or you are making any modification in the SAP standard tables. So you need to understand what are all the related business process related to this specific table. Then you, after changing it, you run all the business process in the quality system, make sure there is no authorization change. If there is some authorization required in a standard SAP, you need to adjust your authorization little bit for the customized authorization group, then you put into production, otherwise it will have an impact. So now let's see how to create an authorization group. The transaction code used to create authorization group is SE54. Let's go to our system, go to the transaction code SE54. Let's take the custom table which we have created for our previous exercise. Set SEC underscore table. This is our custom table. Then you select assign authorization group and display. We select both tables as well as authorization group. Say display, we'll say table name, not this table. I need reset sec underscore table. So this is the table and this is the authorization group which is assigned to this table. So this SS is a standard SAP standard authorization group. You can create your own authorization group. To create your own authorization group, you simply select the authorization group. If you say display, then you have all the authorization group which is available, or if you say create or change, say new entry, we are going to create a new authorization group called Z security. Security training group. So we do not have much space. That's enough. Okay, this is our authorization group. New authorization group. Now we need to assign this authorization group to the table. Want to save the changes? Yes. We need to create a TR. Okay. Okay. So authorization group is saved in the TR. Now we are going to assign this authorization group to the table. Change table name, select, this is our table name. So let's change authorization group from SS to the one which we have created, that is reset SEC, and save the changes. Okay, data is saved. Go back. Now if you go to tddat and see this specific table, it should be changed. That put this value. Now we are in the new authorization group. So like this we can create and assign authorization group to different tables. Next, what we are going to see a special authorization group called &NC &. If you should have seen in our tddat, you should have seen some authorization groups like in this name. Let's go here. Let's remove some from here. Let's execute. You can see &NC &. This is available with many tables. The reason why we have &NC & is, let's say for example we can have tables without authorization group. In that case, what we will check? How do we check? So in that cases, the tables with does not have an authorization group, the value which will be checked is &NC &. Meaning to say &NC & means that particular table does not have an authorization group. This is the standard way SAP checks. Any table does not have an authorization group, it will check &NC &. Nowadays what developers do, that if we create a new table, we just simply add the authorization group ampersand NC ampersand just to confirm that this particular table does not have any authorization group. That is the reason we have ampersand NC ampersand also as an authorization group in this TDDAT table. The next authorization we would like to discuss about is reports. Reports are executable programs. The executable programs are just one of the different types of many programs. You can protect these programs using the authorization object s_program. This checks that whether you are allowed to execute the particular program using the authorization group. It's almost same like our authorization group which we use it in our table. It's perhaps little bit same concept. So you can create an authorization group, or you can have your own authorization group, custom authorization group assigned to specific program. So if you want to allow one user to run a specific program, or if you want to restrict the users accessing all the programs, then you can use this particular authorization object to restrict these programs. In general, the SE38 or SA38 to run the program, the transaction code to run the program is not given to any users. In some situation you may need to give that kind of situations that you can still further restrict this program, that they can access to only specific program, or you can prevent them accessing some of this program. The reason SA38 and SE38 is not given to any users, let's say you do not need to have authorization for the specific transaction code, ST code. You have the authorization for specific objects, you can directly go to SE38 and run the program. Many of the program may not have authorization check also in the programs, because if let's say you create a program without an authorization check to do some updates, you can go and execute without additional authorization if you have SE38 in the productive system. So it's quite risky to give SE38 to any users. In general condition it is not given. However, in a special case that some kind of highly privileged users wanted to use this kind of SE38 programs, then you can use this s_program authorization object and identify this program, create an authorization group, assign only this authorization group to this user, then they can execute only that specific program. Let's see in our system how this works. First we need to see a program. First we need a program to run. Let's have a program. To run the program you can go to SA38 and give the program name here. For example, this is a program to download request. This is a Z program. As you know, Z program in customized program. We created this program to download the request. Basically it downloads the TRs. Then you can put some TR number and you can download this one. So this is a Z program. You can run it in SA38 if just you want to run it. But if you want to maintain this program or create this program, then you will use the transaction code SE38. Here you can maintain this program. You can display the source code, variants, you can maintain variants, you can have attributes, you can have documents, or you can have text elements. Like this you can do the maintenance of this program in the transaction code SE38. So if you click attributes and click display, here you can see this program have an authorization group. At the moment this authorization group is blank. Okay, we can assign an authorization group for this specific program. So what we do, let's create a role first. /n pfcg set underscore bc I will say program maintain create SAP security I use the menu option, add SE38 and SA38. This not only this is the only transaction code you can use for this program. You have quite many transaction code to maintain this program and create these programs. If you wanted to view the code, even you can get into debug mode and view the codes. So this is the just simple example which we took, SE38 and SA38. Let me go to authorization, change, say yes. Okay. First one is yes, dataset. As we seen, this is for the file maintenance. Okay, let's keep it star at the moment. Anyway, it's not very relevant for us at the moment, so it's fine. Just leave it like this. Then yes underscore develop. This is for developer authorization. To get into SE38, you need anyway this authorization. At the moment, we will just keep it like this with the standard default. Right now, let us concentrate on this authorization object yes underscore program. So we have two fields. First one is action, second one is group. The action, where you can define what all the action is possible. So we have scheduling the program in the background. You have PTC submit, and you have submit, execute this program, and maintain variants. So all allowed. And authorization group, at the moment it's blank. So let me put star now for time being. Let's to check whether this user is able to run this program first time. So I will create the profile and generate it. And this is the role. Let me record the role. Okay, we will assign this role to one user. Maybe we can use the existing user, security student A. We do a user comparison. Since we assign directly in PFCG, we need to do a user comparison. Now it is green. So we assign the role to the user security A, which also have additional authorization for table maintenance. That doesn't matter. So let's log in by this user. Our client is 800. Security student A. So from this user I can go to SE38 and let's call the program. Here if I say execute this program, okay, we are able to execute this program. That means the authorization is working fine. Now let's assign an authorization object for this program. Let's copy this program. Let's go to the user who have authorization to maintain. Now we will go to SE38, take this program, attributes, and we say change. The carryout repos on non-original system if only they are urgent, because this program is not coming from this system, so it gives information. So for us it's fine, just edit it. Now at the moment the authorization group is blank. Now I will select an authorization group. So these are all the authorization group which is presently available. So let's select one authorization group from here which already existing, WF underscore develop. This is the authorization group which we are going to use. You can create additional authorization group, but at the moment we will just use what is available. So let me create one TR for this program authorization group meeting. Okay, let me record what is my authorization group. This is my authorization group. Now let's go to the role and change the authorization group from star to specific authorization group. So at the moment I have authorization which is star. If I go to program, it says it is star. So instead of star I will change it to this specific authorization group. That means I should be able to run the programs which is only with this specific authorization group. Let's say I will change it to some another group which is not available. A group, I just put a dummy group called BBC, then save and generate. Now let me go to the user student A, and let me run this program. It says submit authorization WF develop required for this program. That means we do not have authorization for WF develop. That means this specific program belongs to this group, that we do not have authorization to do that. Let's go to SU53. /n SU53. So in SU53 you can see that you need the authorization object s underscore program with the activity submit with the program group WF underscore develop. If you open this one, then you know what is exactly missing. If we already have submit, but it is only for BBC, we need to add this WF underscore develop, then you can execute this program, because that belongs to that group. So let me go back to our role. Let's change it to our actual group. Save and generate. Now we can go to the student again. Go to SC38. I'll go to the same program and execute. Now we can execute this program. Okay, let's try to run a different program. Let's say I have a program called RS param to read the parameters. If I execute, it says you do not have authorization to execute this program. Let's go back to our presentation. Like this, we can restrict the authorization for specific programs by assigning an authorization group for this program. You may think that why do we need that? In some situation you may need that one, but in a perfect scenario, if it is an end user, if it is not a consultant, or if it is not a user who knows what is to do with SC38 or SA38, you please don't assign this transaction code to them. You can create a transaction code very simple for each program, then have authorization checks within the transaction code, then you assign to this user. However, in the situations like some kind of you are going to execute some program, some kind of upgrade where people need to use a set of programs, the efforts which you may spend to create a transaction code and create the roles and assign to this user, or this is not the actual requirement, or you are not going to use this program in the future, then you can create an authorization group and assign this SA38 to users so that they can execute this program by themselves, a set of program by themselves. So there is one possibility of assigning this SA38 to users. Let's go to the next object. So the next object we are going to discuss about is related to background jobs. You already know what is background jobs, how we can schedule background jobs. This background job scheduling and this authorization also is very critical. Let's say somebody is running and you are not supposed to run any particular transaction code, but however if you can schedule this job in background, then you can get all the data. So this background job and monitoring the background job or displaying the background job also has critical authorizations. So we need to understand how the background job is being scheduled, how we can control this authorization. The first object which we are going to see is s_btch_job. Using this authorization object, you can assign the user authorization for all operation except scheduling. With this object they cannot schedule, they can do everything except scheduling. For example, you should assign the user to authorization to delete their own jobs, so that you can assign it here. So this have two different fields. The first one is job action and second one is job group. The job action which determines the job operations, we have DELE, that means delete background job, LIST, that is display spool request or display spool request for a created job, and plan, that means copy or repeat the jobs, and PROT, that is to display the job processing log. Then release the job, that is once you schedule the job you need to release the job from schedule to release. To release the job, then show, that is display job queue. Then the second field is job group. This job group is actually reserved, this generally set it star. Let's see how we can do this in our system. We will create one role. Let's create one more role, pfcg. Underscore job. Can create a single role, say SAP security training background job maintenance. So how do we maintain the background jobs? So let's add the transaction codes. The transaction code to monitor the job, which is SM37, and to schedule the job, that is SM36. So job monitoring and job scheduling, two transaction code which we added. Go to users, go to authorization, Go to change authorization data. So we got our transaction codes. So at the moment we are going to use only this authorization object, s underscore batch underscore job. Okay, this two we will just simply disable it. And job operation. So let's say we assign all this authorization. Okay, then this we simply select star. Save and generate. We also need to give authorization for this user to schedule the job in background for all the jobs. So for that we already have a role, this program maintain, but we restricted this program maintenance only to specific authorization group. For this exercise we will be allowing the user to execute all the authorization group. Here we will make it star, so that for the time being we can execute all the programs. Okay, this is our role which we have created. Let's assign to the same user. So our second role, let's assign to the same user. Go to user tab and assign to the same user. So at the moment this user have many authorization. Let's go back, go to SU01 and let's review what all the authorization they have. Go to roles and you can see SU53, background job maintenance, and this execute program SC38, SA38, and table maintenance. Okay, now let's log in using this user. We already logged in. Let's see, yes. So let's type /n. We got all the transaction code in the menu. Let's change the menu settings and say display technical names. Okay, now we have SM37 and SM36 also assigned to this user. Now based on what we have seen, that it should allow this particular activity for own jobs. That means you can do all this operation for their own jobs except scheduling. So first let's go to the system and see whether can we schedule a job. So let's go to the transaction called SA38 to run the job, or we can schedule in background also using this transaction. If you click here it will run the job, or if you schedule it background you can go to program and execute in background. So right now we are going to execute in background. So we need to select the variant. We have a variant called text and we can say execute immediately, or we can schedule this job. What I will do, I will say execute immediately. Say report RSPARM started as background job. It has been scheduled in the background. Now if I go, now let me go to the transaction code /NSM37 to monitor the job. Here I can select job name star with this user. That means it will display all the jobs which is running under this user. for this specific date. So execute, then you can see this is been completed. If you wanted to see the log, you select and say job log, then it say it started with the variant test and it's finished successfully. And if you wanted to change this one user, you can go to change. Unfortunately this is already completed, so we cannot change anything. If you want to delete, you can simply go and delete it. If you say delete, it's deleted, the job is deleted. Generally this delete authorization is not given to any users, even to basis, that you are not supposed to delete any jobs from the SAP system. The reason is again for the security reasons. For example, this is a parameter display job which may not be much sensitive. If you run a background job which is with the sensitive data and you took all the data or you downloaded the data, once you downloaded, if you delete this one, then you don't have any logs what job is done by which user. It is advisable not to assign this delete authorization to anybody. In the authorization right now what we are seeing, you can do all this activity only for your own jobs. Others job you cannot see, but you can see the jobs only under the status schedule. Okay, let's go to find all others jobs. Let me put it star here, user ID star. That means all jobs, all user in this specific date with all status. Select this and say execute. I got some 4 or 5 jobs which is only under the status schedule. It does not mean that we do not have any other job. We have star as well as star. If I go to a different user, our training user, this is our trainer user. If I go to SM37 and put star and star, execute, you can see quite a lot of jobs which is running and different status. Right now this is not been displayed for the other student user because they do not have authorization to view any other users. So let's go to the student. Let's say if I want to change this, so can I change this? If select this and say go to change, you can only change your own jobs. The authorization what we given to this user can change their own job. They cannot change somebody else's job. Generally for end user, this is the only authorization objects given, so they can view their own jobs or they can schedule jobs and they can view their own jobs, but the delete authorization will not be given to any users. They can create jobs, they can schedule jobs, their own jobs, and they can view their jobs and they view their logs, but they cannot view the others log, because as we seen each user have different authorizations, so they will run some reports, some background job based on their authorizations. So if you allow other user to see a different users jobs, that means they can also see others data. So that is quite critical. That's the reason for end users this is the only authorization objects to be given without delete authorization. In some very restricted systems, even they will not allow the end user to schedule any jobs, and they will only allow the administrator to schedule the jobs. So if they need anything, then they have to go and ask the administrator to schedule the job, but they can view their own jobs. This is again depends on how you design your background job processing, and the security belongs to this background jobs. In a best case scenario, what we will do is we will allow the user to schedule their own jobs, but we will not allow them to delete any jobs. So they can schedule their own user, then they don't have to go to, let's say, as we have seen in many transaction code, you can run the transaction code in background. For example, in our PFCG you run it in background. Like this, lot of business transaction you have to run it in background because it will be too much data that if you run it in foreground. So that's the reason you need to run it in background. So we allow them to run it in background, but we will not allow them to delete, but they can do all this thing in their own users, but they cannot do it for other users. So that is the use of the first authorization object. Now what we do is, let's remove the delete authorization from this user and see what happens. Now we are in our SAP system with the user trainer. Let me go back and modify the role. This is authorization. I will not allow them to delete. They can display the spool of their own jobs, and they can copy, repeat jobs. They can schedule it again. Rest everything is fine. Only delete I removed. So we are trying to make a perfect scenario. Okay, right now the student A can create their own jobs and they cannot do anything else with the other jobs, but they cannot delete their own jobs. The reason why we are not allowing them to delete the job, because you have an audit log. You can go back and see what the program was scheduled by this user and what was the output. So let's go to SA38 again. Let's do it in background. I select a variable. I will not execute immediately. Let me schedule it. I'll put the same job name. Let's say 23. Schedule once. Okay, only one time I scheduled this. That means this program is scheduled now in background for this date. Now let me go back. Some 37/n some 37 to monitor the job and execute. So I have one job which is released in the status released. If I double click, and this is scheduled on 23rd. If I wanted to change this date, I go to job, then I go back, go to job, then change, then start condition. Instead of 23, I want it to be run in 22. Check and save it. Now still unreleased, but it's going to run on 22. Now let's say I want to delete this. I simply go to job and delete. So you want to delete it, say yes. Good. Okay, deletion exercise, we don't need it. Let's go to the next one. So let's go to the next object. Next object is s_btch_adm to administrate the job created by other user. It means this particular object provides authorization for administrator to administrate the jobs created by other users. So this basically have only one field, which is called btc admin, the background administrator ID. If you simply say yes, that means the authorization is provided. If you say no, then it's not provided. This particular object provides the access to background jobs in all clients. That means they can display the background jobs scheduled in all clients, not only to the specific client. They can see the all clients. Without this authorization object, the user trying to find the background jobs can see only the client specific background jobs. This specific authorization objects allow to perform all functionality in background jobs. Also allows the program to execute the job steps. Let's see in our system. Let's add this particular object to our user, then we know the difference. So let's go to the system. Let's go to the trainer user. So this is our role. Let's go to modify. go to authorization, change data. So we have the authorization already available. We deactivated it. Let's activate it again and say yes. Save. Now this authorization should allow to administrator others job as well. Now if I say save and generate, come out from PFCG. Let's go to the student user. Okay, right now I am in the user student A. Let's go to SM37. Let's say I want to see the jobs which is scheduled by the user start with security underscore, then I put it like this, security underscore, then say execute. There is no jobs at the moment. Let's say five, then quite many jobs been executed. Now I can see other users jobs as well. Yeah, the student 1, student 4, it's quite many jobs I can see. Now if you see, if you select this layout button, right now we don't know which client this job is coming from. So if you want to add additional fields here, then you go here, change layout, click the client. This is the hidden fields. Say you want to add it. You can also move these values up and down. Now let it be like this. Say OK. Now you can see everything coming from client 800 up. So we don't have anything from there because we are working in this system. If I put say gr star, then you can see other client 001. This many jobs has been scheduled in client 001. So you can see other client job also in this SM37. Now you can administrate these jobs. Let's say right now I am in student A. Now I have a job which is created by student 4. If I wanted to see this one, I can simply select this and display job log. You can see it. Now you will be able to schedule, or you will be able to modify these jobs if it is necessary. Let's say what we can do is, let me go and schedule a job in trainer. This is student A. I will go as a login as a trainer. This is trainer. Okay, let me go to SA38 /n SA38, and this is a job which I want to execute in background. Scheduled schedule once. Okay, this has been scheduled under the name of trainer. So let me go to the user student A, say security trainer star, today. I have the job which is scheduled by trainer, but right now I am in student A, and I can view this If I just double click, I can see it's on 23 hours. See, now it's scheduled on 23 hours. I wanted to change it, go to change, say start condition, say immediately, check, save it. Say step 1 contains invalid data. That is because actually I should not use somebody else user to schedule job. That's the reason. We will come to that one. Another authorization object. For time being, I will change this to my own user ID, to security student A. Select, save, go back. Okay, now this is changed to different date. The confusion there was the user. It was initially scheduled by this one. That's a different authorization. We will come to that. Not to get confused about this. So in this authorization object, what we are trying to do is that we can administrate the jobs of different users. Okay, now let us go to the next authorization object. Next authorization object is s_btc_nam. This authorization object schedule the jobs with access of another user. So you can schedule the job with the access of another user. Basically what happened in our previous exercise, I couldn't schedule the job. When I changed the job, I was trying to change the job which belongs to a different user, so I cannot reschedule that one because I did not had this authorization object. That's the reason. Using this particular authorization object, you can schedule the job using authorization of different user. The field which is used here is btc name. That is background username for authorization check. btc_username, it's called authorized user. You can also use the users using generic names, like using the star. Let's say you have some starting string. Let's say for example what we have seen during our job monitoring, sec_, then we put star. So you can also use this star value so that you can allow the permission to more than one users. Otherwise you have to specify the users one by one. The point here is that you can also use this star values. This determines the authorization users which user can be chosen while scheduling the background jobs. So what we do is, if you go to SC36, that you can specify which user's authorization needs to be used to run this specific background job. That you can specify for a different user. So that user's authorization will be used to run this specific background job. So what happens is, generally when you schedule a background job, it runs under your user, then it will be using your own users. But in a special conditions, then you wanted to use somebody else user ID or some another user's user ID, then you can use it. Now you may wonder, why do I need to schedule under a different user? Okay, this is called background user authorization concept. In general, all the periodic jobs, all the users can run only their own jobs, what they are authorized to. As I said, the end user can run only their own jobs, what they have authorized to. That means they have the specific authorization, they can run a job, whatever authorization we have assigned to that user. So in a case like you have some program which needs to have some more authorization, you have to run it in a periodic basis. So like these type of jobs, you will have quite a lot of job in. in the system. In that kind of scenarios, what we will do is we will create a background users called some users with a as a system user, which we have seen in the initially. We can create a background users. This background user will have more authorization than the normal user. Using this background user, you cannot log into the system. So you have a specific requirement, a program which has more authorization which is required to run it in background. But this program should not be used by any normal dialog users. In that case, you will use this background user which has more authorization. You will schedule under that background user. So you can schedule under that background user this specific program, it will run it in background, but you cannot use that user to log in. So that is the idea behind that. So in that kind of scenarios, so if you wanted to schedule under that background user or that special user, then you need to have this authorization object s underscore btch underscore nam. Then you have to specify which is the users that you can schedule. That is the main reason that if you remember in our previous exercise that we had an issue while scheduling this job. So let's see in our system how do we schedule these jobs. So right now I am in the user student A. I wanted to schedule some job using the user the trainer. So how do we schedule that? Using the transaction code SM36. Then you will give a job name, let's say security test demo. Then you need to select the job class. The job class means you have three different type of job class: high priority, medium priority and low priority. Actual this job scheduling will be done by basis, but for us to understand this, it will be quite easy. If you understand this concept, then you can diagnose and fix the issues in background jobs and authorization related. So coming back to the job class, you have different kind of class. It's like a priority. So if you put priority high, which is A, then the jobs which is on priority A will be scheduled first or will be run first, then B will be second and C will be last. That means, for example, when we see in our system we have only 3 background process. So you have 10 background jobs or 20 background jobs triggered in a specific time, or you schedule in a specific time. So what is going to happen? So what it will do is it will first take all the background job which has the job class A. It will trigger one by one whatever based on the work process available. Once the jobs from A is finished, then it will pick up the job B, then it will pick up the job C. That is the use of job class. At the moment this status is scheduled. Then you can also this execute target means you can execute the programs in specific servers. At the moment we have only one server, so if you can select, it's fine. If you don't want to select it, you can simply leave it blank. If you leave it blank, what happens is, let's assume you have more than one servers in this SAP system, then the system will assign the server automatically. Whichever the server have the background process free, then it will assign to that specific server and it will run with that servers. So if you wanted to have a load balancing, then you can leave it blank. Otherwise you can, if you wanted to run it in a specific server, then you can run it in a specific server. So right now we will just leave it blank. Then you go to the steps. The steps, you can create steps to run a program. Here you can specify the user. By default it picked up the user student A, the user which I logged in. So it will schedule by default into your user ID, but if you want to change this user ID, then let me change it to trainer 1, and we put the program name. We need to select the variant. We have only test. Now I am going to select. It says you are not authorized to schedule the user security trainer. That means I do not have authorization to schedule the jobs under this trainer. If we go to create session su53. now you can see this is the authorization object which is missing. Okay, so without this authorization object you cannot schedule under somebody else's name. So what we will do is let's modify the role. Okay, so I will just leave it like this. I cannot schedule it. You want to cancel it? Yes. So I cannot schedule it, so I cancelled it. So let me go to the trainer user to modify the role. Go to change authorization, expert mode, edit old status, and so this is the authorization object s underscore btch underscore nam, which we have disabled. Let me enable this, and I will assign security underscore star. That means whoever has this specific authorization object with this role, they can schedule the jobs under the user starting with sec underscore star. So if I save and generate, go back. Now if I go to the user student A and go to SM36 and create the job sec demo, then steps, and I will change this to trainer, then select the variant. If I check, it's fine. If I save, I can schedule it. Go back. Now I need to select the start condition, execute, select, save, save. Okay, then now the job is released. Go back and go to SM37, and execute. We have one job which is already finished. If I select this and go to the job log, you can see this is scheduled by our user, the student A, but it was running under the user ID security underscore trainer 1. So if I use any other users which is not starting from sec underscore, then you cannot schedule the job. For example, if you go to SM36 steps, let's take some another user, Sapstar for example. Generally you should not run any jobs under Sapstar, so you are not authorized to schedule user Sapstar, so we cannot use this. Okay, let's go to our presentation. The next topic we are going to discuss about spools. The spools are nothing but it's a output coming from your background jobs. Let's say when you are running some program, you get some outputs, but when you're running the same program in background mode, you will not be able to get this output. Let's say how we need to understand what is spools first. Let me show you how does the spool looks like. Let's go to the trainer user. I go to PFCG, easier to understand. I go to mass generation, put all roles, select some is set underscore star. Let's say generate automatically. Let's say PM star. generate automatically. If you execute, it will generate and give you some outputs. So you got some output, for example. Okay, we can run this program in background. So let's say go to execute in background. So just simply say okay, immediate check, execute. Right now it's executing in background. Let's say go to /n sm37, only this trainer user, and let's say all the jobs running under only this user sec underscore trainer 1. Say execute. Now this is the job which is run just now. If you see, you have something called spool. This means this particular job created a spool result. And select this, and if you click this spool, and you have, this is the spool. This is called spool number. You can open this spool using the transaction code SP01 and enter this spool number. You can read the spool like that. Otherwise we simply click here, above list. Then if you see, this is the result which we got when we are running this in foreground. So when you are running this in background, the result is saved in a spool. Each spool have one number. So this is the way spool works. So we are going to discuss about the spool which is being generated during our background process. So let's go back to our presentation. The authorization object used to control this spool is s underscore admin admi underscore fdc. This is called system authorization. And s underscore spo underscore act and s underscore spo underscore dev. First of all, this s underscore admi underscore fdc, it has lot of functionality which is controlled using this specific authorization object. It has quite a lot of fields and the values. So for spool administration also we will use this one, but the main function is, this is for system administration. To see the detail of the spool, let's go to the transaction code SU21, put /n SU21. The authorization object which we are searching is, just click the search button, then type in the authorization object s underscore admi underscore fcd. Okay, now we found the authorization object. Double click on this authorization object, then you will open it like this. When you click the display object documentation, it will open up the other window and give you the detail of this specific authorization object. This authorization object checks authorization to several basis functions, for example spool administration and monitoring. You have quite a number of system administration functionality, for example NADM network administration. This is for SM55, SM58, SM59, all these kind of authorizations. Then PADM, this is for process administration, SM50, SM51 and SM02. Like this, you have lot of authorization which is being controlled using this specific authorization objects. So for us right now, what we are going to see only the spool administration. For spool administration, what we really required is SP01, and as you can see, it also works with other spool objects in condition with other spool objects. So only this one may not be enough. So we need SP01, and SPAM is for administration. We just want to display. We are discussing this object in terms of background job processing. And let's say if this is all DB related, audit administration, this is caching, SP01 and SPOR. SP01 is authorization for administration of spool request in the spool output control for all user and all client. So when you assign this specific authorization object, then you can request for the spool output. You can take control over the spool output. Or SPOR, this is says authorization for administration of spool request all user in spool output control. Access is limited spool request in the current client of this user. So if you assign this one, then it will allow for all user and all client. If you assign this one, then it's only for current user. So for end users, what we can do is we can give SP01. For administrator, we can give this one. So that is a idea behind this. So this is a 2 which is related to that. You have the detail about this SP01 and SPOR. For example, SP01, to access a spool request in your own client as part of your own protected request, you need an additional authorization object S underscore SPOT underscore ACT, spool activity. In the spool activity, you will define what you will do with the spool. To access the spool request, external client and users with authorization of SP01 are automatically authorized to list the spool request and to display their attributes. Administrator with value SPAD and SPAM, see above, we have the details above, have unlimited authorization for external client spool request. So this is for administration, as I said before. So we are not going to administration part now. We will see only the spool output only. And SPOR, this access spool request as part of your own protected request, you need additional authorization of this particular authorization object. We will assign at the moment, let's say SP01 and SPOR, and see what happens. So what we will do, let's go to our role, go to, let's copy this object, EFCG, our background job maintenance role, go mode edit old status. I will manually add, I will key in the authorization object and select this, open. Then if you select the functionality, then it will give you the detail of all the functionalities. We need this SP01 for use of SP01 for all users, and SPOR and request management. Okay, select it, say execute. So only this one may not be enough to record the spools. Let's say right now we added, as we seen in our description, let's say let's try this one, /n SM37. Let's check user. So this is the one we executed from trainer. Check, select the spool. You are not authorized to select the spool request. At the moment we do not have. Okay, even though you assign that one, it has to work combination with other authorization object. So let's see what is other authorization object. S underscore SPO underscore ACT, spool action. It has two fields, SPO action and SPO authorization. SPO action means authorization field for spool action. This is the operation to define the spool request, and SPO authorization, this is for authorization checks. So let's go to SU21 and see the detail. This is our student user. Let me switch it to the trainer user. /n SU21 S underscore SPO underscore SET. Okay, this is our object, and when you say display, then it gives all the detail. Okay, so we need display and change attributes and protector spool authorization print. For example, if you do not allow them to print, then you are not authorized to print this specific pool. You can display it, but you cannot print it. Then AUTH change authorization value of protected spool. So if the pool is protected, you are allowed to change these values. Then delete, you can delete, but these are all we don't assign to any users. Deleting and authorization change, these are all very critical, so we don't allow this one. Then download spool request. Let's say if you wanted to protect very sensitive system, you should not download any data to your local PC, then we can remove these authorization objects. That we cannot, meaning you don't provide this download request. So when they go to the request, they cannot download it. So we have quite a number of authorizations which we can control using this one. So we have action as well as authorization. In the action, we will define what action you can perform. In the authorization, this describes the value of authorization check. For example, if you see the value is FI, that means all the authorization values begins with FI will be included in this one. The SPO underscore authorization, this allows the value of authorization check. That means it gives you the details of protected users. For example, okay, value of authorization checks, authorization value for which user is authorized. The authorization value is set in the attributes of spool request. So you need to specify which users are authorized. Let's say if you specify user with authorization value underscore double underscore user and double underscore, then can access all protected requests of all users in the client according to the authorization action. That means according to the action what you have specified. So in our scenario, we will also assign this one. Okay, let's go to the next authorization object. Next one is SPO underscore device. This one controls the device name, meaning when you are printing any material or anything from SAP, you need to specify which printer you are going to print. So each printer in SAP have a name which you can print. So you need to specify the printer. Let's say you want to print this spool output, then you can go to print and specify the printer, then it will print in that specific printer. For example, if you have a printer here, if I say print view, then you have an output device. You need to select the output device. This output device is again configured by your basis team. We have an output device name LP01. This is a default printer, LP01. Then you select OK, continue, then it will be printed. So each device will have a printer name. So you can restrict which printer you can print, or you can specify which are all the printers you are allowed to print using this authorization object. The reason is maybe you are not allowed to print at all, then you can restrict this. Some very critical spools, like for example some financial document, or maybe some kind of technical details, or some kind of some manufacturing companies will have some kind of data, which some specifications of some machines or some chemical products how you will create. These are all very confidential data, so you don't allow them to be downloaded into their local machine or to an USB stick wherever, or you won't allow them to be printed. It will be only in the system, you will only watch, monitor, that's it. So then that cases you can use this kind of authorization object to restrict. Or let's say you anyway need to print this kind of information, then you will allow them only to one specific printer. That specific printer, you also have a high-end printer, something like whenever you print to that specific printer, that printer will have its own stamp. So it will have a stamp automatically printed by this printer, that it will stamp who printed and what was the system which was printed, what was the user printed, what time it was printed, and this kind of information. It's like it will stamp an identity. This was confidential information, this not to be distributed, this kind of statements, and it will print that along with that specific document which you are printing. So if it goes to somewhere else, then you can identify who printed and what time it was printed and what was the reason for printing. So this kind of restriction, so if by using that one you can allow the user to print only to that specific printer. So that is the use of this authorization objects. And we have next one more authorization object. This is restriction for number of pages. You may think, why do we need to restrict number of pages? Some of the documents, some of the outputs is generated from SAP. If you without looking at it, if you simply print, it's going to print quite a lot of data for no reason. So in that kind of scenario, if you can restrict how many pages you can print, then people will be careful not to waste much of papers or energy in this case. So you can have this kind of authorization object as well to control the printing. So in our case, let's add this authorization object to our user, s_spo_act. Let me go to PFCG, authorization objects, edit, old, s_spo_act. Then this is the object. So what I can do, let's say I cannot delete, I can display, I can download, edit, print, except delete I assigned everything. Then authorization check, here what we will specify for user, 2. Then it for all users we can display, save and generate. Now let me log in using the student user. Go to student A /n sum37 and execute. So this is the spool which is created by trainer1. I select this and select the spool. Now I can see the spool and click this, and we can find what is inside this spool. Now we have provided authorization for all users to be displayed in the specific role. If you want to restrict only for the specific user, then you have to specify the user instead of the all users which we specified with _users. Then you can specify only the specific users. Okay, this is spool management. Let's go to our presentation. We have seen spool act, we have also seen spool device to restrict the device authorization. Now let's come to users and roles. We already seen this authorization objects. We are very well aware what we can do with this authorization objects. However, this is also critical authorization objects. The reason is the user administration is again a very critical authorization. As we seen, using 4i principle or 8i principle, that you need to restrict this authorization, otherwise it can be lead to some misuse of authorization. So we have mainly 4 authorization object. One is additionally included for this system specific authorization. s_user_agr is for authorization role check, and s_user_aut, this is for user master maintenance authorization. Then s_user_grp, this is for user group. Then s_user_pro, this is for authorization profile. Then s_user_sis, this is for system specific assignment. The next authorization object which we are going to see is related to BDC section, that is batch input sessions. So first you need to understand what is batch input section. Batch input is basically we have a transaction called SM35. Go to trainer, let's go to /n SM35. So if you go to this transaction code, you can see quite a lot of jobs. These are all different jobs. You can see the session names. This is created by user and what time and what is the program which is been running. The difference between your SM36, SM37 and SM35, you may have some questions. What is the difference between SM37 and SM35? SM35 is nothing but it's a batch input processing screen. Okay, if you schedule a batch input here, then when you run it, anyway it's going to SM35. It's like a background job only it will run, which you can monitor by SM37. But here what we can do is you can create a batch input. For example, you may know something called LSMW. LSMW is a tool to do a data migration, generally which is used for data migration. Let's say you wanted to run a specific transaction code multiple times, over 1000 times with a different data. Okay, that's what it happens when you're doing data migration. Let's say you are migrating from one system, some old legacy system to SAP. In the legacy system you have lot of purchase order. So when you put in SAP, you need to create that kind of purchase orders into our SAP system. You have 1000 purchase orders in there. You wanted to put it in our SAP system. You cannot do the purchase order creation 1000 times. Instead, using this LSMW, you can create a batch session. So this each time it will run the create purchase order, it will provide the input from this batch session and it will keep running. So it will run 1000 times to complete the whole process. So that's the batch. So processing of batch of data is called batch input. So that processing is defined in this SM35. Anyway, once in SM35, when it actually runs in the system, that will run in our background job, in our using background process. Here you can manage this batch. For example, if I open this specific job, if you see, this is running a transaction code PA61 and this is a status, it's already processed. Then it will process this PS, run this specific transaction so many times. If I double click on this one specific thing, then you can see this is the first program it is run with this screen and this is the second program it run with the screen. So like this you can call different transactions multiple times. That's called batch inputs. Once this is released from here, this is not released, this is only the status, means completed, processed, this is error, this is still create. So when they wanted to, this is new, if you want to release, you select this, sorry, and you say process, then it will process in the foreground or you can also process in the background. So this is batch input. So this batch input, to control this batch input is again a very critical job. Some of the bigger system you may also see there is a batch input administrator who will monitor and administer these specific jobs. So in order to control this batch input session, we have an authorization object which is called S_BDC monitoring. This is batch input authorization. It has two different fields. One is BDC AKTI, batch input monitoring activity. This activity you have ABTC. It will allow you to pause. Then second one is analysis and of the logs. Then next one is AONL, that is for processing the section in dialog mode. So in many places we will not allow to process this in dialog mode. The next one is the delete session, which is again the critical one, which is not allowed. Then export sessions, you can export the session. Then free means release the sessions, and import, lock and relock. Then we have BDC group ID, where we can specify the session name. If we go to SM35, you can see the session name. So we can restrict based on the session name so that they can access only that specific sessions. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, this is batch input monitoring. This is also very critical authorization, so we have to be very clear and define what can be done by this batch input administrator, what can be done by the basis team. This is quite critical because the batch input processing is going to process quite a lot of data at one time, so it is very critical to do this operation. The next object we would like to discuss about is s_develop. This is one of the most critical objects. This object is specially used for ABAP workbench related access. These are 5 fields. First one is development package. This is the development package for the specific object which we are trying to modify. Then the object type, then the object name, what is the name of the object, as well as p_group, that is an authorization group for this ABAP program, and the activity, what we can do with this authorization object. As I said, this is one of the very critical authorization object, meaning to say, let's say you have this authorization object assigned as activity 03, then you will be able to go to the program and identify what is the code for this specific program. That is the example for 03. Example for 02, that means you can modify this code. The activity 02 means you can modify the code. Okay, in development you cannot do any modification because modification will be totally blocked. You cannot change the program in the productive system. You cannot do any modification. The program modification is totally, nobody can change anything even though you have authorization. In the client level, that is closed. Now you may wonder, then what is the problem of changing the program? Anyway, you cannot do any changes. The most critical part is during the debugging. You know what is debugging? Debugging means, let's say if you have an issue with the program, then you can debug the program step by step from the ABAP code. Let me show you what is debugging. You go to transaction code SU01. This is just for example. Now let's say I want to debug this program. SU01 anyway is calling a program. So we go to status. You can find the program name here. This is the program. If you double click, then it will go directly into the program. Okay. To view the code, we can directly go here. Otherwise, let's say I want to debug this program. I wanted to see what is the steps which is being executed during this program execution. What I will do, I will simply give the command /h and enter. Then you can see debugging switched on. It will switch on the debug. Then I say, then I will do the next activity. Let's say I want to do the change for this user. Say change. Then automatically brings to this screen where it shows the coding of the specific program and in what stage. Now here we can go to each and every step. This is called debugging. For example, in this step, this username is equal to usr02-b name. So it's coming from use table usr02. This is the field. Now if I double click in this one, now this is the field. Okay, now this is the variable. Okay, if I go back, now if you see the username, the value is _sec_student. So this is the debugging example. The sample what we said, that if you have activity 03, then you can go and do this debugging. Right now if you see, I have the change button which is enabled. Right now I am in the user which is trainer 1. That's the reason which has SAP all authorization. That's the reason you have this debugging authorization. Now if we go, if you can change this value, I can put something else. So let's say trainer 1 or let's say student 6. The value is changed to student 6. Okay, now I go further down. Say user SEC student 6 does not exist. Like this we can change the value of a variable using this debug change authorization, this activity 02. So that is very critical. If let's say I have only display authorization for this SU01, but I wanted to do a change here, so what I will do is I will go to debug mode and the authority check the statement. Generally it will return okay, you do not have authorization, that specific value I can change, then skip and go to the next level. Is it as good as you have SAP all authorization? So with this debug change authorization you can do any changes in the productive system. So that is very, very critical. That's the reason this s_develop is the one of the most critical authorization available in SAP. So when we are assigning this s_develop, we have to be very clear to which user we are assigning. In general, development change is not allowed in production at all. We give only 03. In case somebody would like to debug, go to the code and verify this specific code. That's the only reason we need to assign s_develop to any user. Let's see for the documentation in this specific object. SU21 here, s_develop. So these are all the fields which is available. Then display object document, then it gives you the detail, the general authorization object in ABAP workbench. So this are all using this authorization object you can do quite many activities. So here we can see the debug, the object type what you are assigning is a debug. Activity 1 means displaying in system program and kernel debugging, you can even debug the kernels. And activity 19 debugging in section of other users like HTTP and RFC sessions. So like this is a very powerful authorization. You have quite a lot of objects, quite a lot of fields and field values which is available in this s_develop authorization object. So whenever you assign this specific authorization object, you have to very particular assign only the object which is required, only the value which is required. Just simply don't put it star, then it's going to create a quite a lot of issues. Okay, this is debug authorization. For development authorization, to develop this s_develop along with some other authorization, whatever you are going to develop is also required. So like for example s_program, whenever you are executing a program or developing a program, this also is required along with your development authorization object. So if you wanted to create a TR or when you are developing something, it will automatically pops you to create a TR. So to do that changes and to pop up the TR, you also need s_transport. So this works in combination with other authorization object. However, this authorization object for debugging, it will work alone, because as you seen, we can simply key in the command /h, then debug will start immediately. Then you can go and do the modification, or you can do the debugging display or debugging change, whatever it is you are intended to do. Moreover, using this authorization object, you can also restrict to specific packages or specific authorization type. Or for example, if let's say in a special condition, let's assume that you do not generally assign this debug display also, you don't allow anybody to debug in the productive system, then in some cases you wanted to allow only in the productive system because some very critical problem, then you can specify the package, which package. That basically the package means you all the objects related to one specific group into one package, then you can give authorization only to that specific package, so they can do the debugging only to that package. That's the way to restrict. In general, as I said, 02 is not permitted anyway in the productive system. And you may also see sometime if you are escalating issues to SAP, they will ask for a debug 02. The reason is they are going to do debugging, and some table values they are going to change during the debug process. That's the reason they may require this one. However, in a protected environment, this debug change values, whatever we have changed during debug change, whatever we have changed using the debug change authorization also logged. So it is in a we have this log already available in SAP. However, we have to be quite careful when we are assigning this authorization to other users. With this, we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.